What if we're not good enough?
If we're not, who is?
I'm still thinking about this movie, so thank you for that.
Oh, cool. Oh, I like hearing that. It is one that kind of, I hope, stays with you.
Absolutely. Which is why I'm curious. I mean, the idea of having an assessment to determine whether you can have a child seems all sorts of intrusive. So when you read this and really kind of took in the subject matter and what it was about, how did you feel about the concept of it all?
The concept was the reason why I loved it so much. I think it so elegantly, without hitting you over the head, reflects the way we have taken liberty and freedoms for granted and assume that they're just something that we are naturally born with, depending on where we are born. And I think it's such a simple and human story, but with these absurd rules of a world that seem a little bit like ours, but not completely. And I think I love films that play by their own rules. I love stories that play by their own rules. And so I think those were all the reasons why I really was drawn to it.
Actors often talk about wanting to feel challenged and scared by projects they do and characters they play. So what most challenged you in this, and was it what you thought would most challenge you in it?
That's a good question. What I wanted, I was, what my goal was, I guess, going into this, just from an actor's perspective, not necessarily from a character, embodying a character, but I felt like there was an opportunity here because of the absurd elements, and the pressure cooker feeling of the story, that I would be able to try and reach an edge and hopefully push beyond it, as an actor. I think I am a very kind of controlling person, and I make really clear choices and decisions. And I think I just am always trying to push what my edge is and what I can do on camera, what I feel comfortable doing. And I feel like that, because that was my goal, that wasn't the biggest, hardest challenge. I think the hardest challenge was swimming in that ocean. It was really, really rough. I'm not a great swimmer. I took lessons before shooting. And the day we went to shoot, there was this 1 week of the year that has incredibly rough winds. And that was the choppy water I got to swim in. And that was very challenging.
Of course it was. How easy was it to find the tone of this? Because there's a humor to this that comes from the absurdity of what's going on that makes it all more disturbing. So how was it to find that balance, to find those opposite ends of the oddity and absurdity with the uncomfortable humor, and never having it go too far one way or the other? I mean, did that feel like something you were tweaking all the time?
Completely. That was something we were always trying to find in relation to where we were in the film. So I think you try and find when it's most helpful to use humor, when it's most helpful to ground it. And so that was absolutely, the tone was something that was very fluid, but also a line that we had to toe. Sometimes it would become a little too screwball-y, sometimes maybe too dramatic. And so there's always a shifting line that we were trying to find. And then, kind of pull the rug out from people ultimately, and have it be like a very emotionally connected human basic needs and wants story, after all of this, I guess, I don't like excess. I don't know I don't know what to use, but not distractions. But I'm being inarticulate right now.
Getting so personal with someone so impersonal creates this very interesting dynamic between this couple and their assessor. Did you always know what Alicia would be doing? Were there times that, she would do things you had no idea she was going to approach in the way that she did?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of ways that Alicia approached this that I didn't expect. I think she was constantly tracking what ends up being revealed of her character. She was tracking that from day one of shooting and day one of the filming of, the story day. And so through that guise, I got to see her really create something that I found to be far more interesting than just on the page. And also, she's such an amazing physical actor. So there was just to be able to react to her was my job, and that's always a privilege to have instead of inventing anything.
One of the things that I found quite interesting about this were the moments when the three of you had to sort of fit in bed together. And some of those shots were so interesting to look at. What was that like to figure out physically, even just where to put your bodies for that?
I think that's the stuff that Alicia and I and Fleur love so much. We love composition, and I think that was its own narrative form, is how we physically take up space on the screen and where our alliances are at any given moment within the film. And so that was something we were always pitching back and forth. How could we make this frame more interesting? And yeah, and help tell the story better between the three of them.
Do you know what you're going to be shooting next? Are you currently shooting something now? Because you always seem to be working, but you always play such interesting characters that I'm always so curious what we'll see next.
Oh gosh, well, I'm doing something completely different right now. It's a character I've certainly never played before, on Sam Esmail's Panic Carefully, and I'm almost finished here. The next film that will come out will be later this year called Eternity, which is again like a different kind of thing for me because it's romantic comedy in the afterlife. And then what's next is praying and hoping that a lot of jobs I'm attached to become financed.
Are you someone who, like, do you think about genre when you're approaching something, or is it always the character and the character perspective? Because, like I said, I mean, the characters you played just seem so interesting in the middle of their story.
I think what it's not that I'm seeking a genre or a genre shift even, but I will, I will try and imagine what is each script, if it has a specific genre, if it is a sci-fi, if it is a romantic comedy, where does it fit in the history of those types of genre? I find that interesting to figure out how can you do something that's reflective and honoring of something I loved, or something that you can subvert for audiences. So I think those are the kinds of things I think about when I'm reading a script. And then character is something I don't even overthink. It's something that I either have an immediate impulse and interest in, or I don't. But story and genre, I think, are like a much more like intellectual exercise as to what and why.
Because there are so many mediums that are a part of the Marvel universe, from movies to TV shows to animation to even theme park rides. Do you hope that you'll get to continue revisiting Scarlet Witch in some way? I mean, is that a character that you've enjoyed keeping alive in different forms? Because it's a very unusual thing to get to do.
It is. It's really unusual. It's something that's been incredible. I assume it's how people feel when they get to do a TV show for a long time. To be able to return to a character and continue to move them forward has been so much fun for me, especially because they gave me something like WandaVision to really blow it all up. And from there, Doctor Strange, I think, was like such a wild and crazy turn. And I do feel very lucky that I've been able to play a character for over 10 years of my life, and would love to keep doing more of it. The animation thing, I feel like, is like a parallel world. Like I don't really know how it intersects with what we do, but but I've really enjoyed getting to play her over 10 years, and I continue to feel lucky that I had the opportunities I did creatively.
This is the type of film that ends for your character in a way where we don't know what's next for her, or what could happen in her life. So when you leave a character in a place like that where it feels like the story is continuing, even though we no longer get to see it, do you think about what's next? Have you thought about what's next for Mia?
I don't actually. It's something from the first film I did, Martha, Marcy, May, Marlene, Sean Durkin, when we were doing press for that movie, because it has an opaque ending, I guess. And people always would ask him in our Q&As when we were doing press what he thinks happens next. And he said that he believes a story starts where it starts and ends where it is for ends where it ends for a reason. And it's up to an audience to control how it lives beyond that. And so I've adopted that since I started working, because I really love that. I really love that there's a specific framing of a story that we're only responsible for.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very cool that, we sort of get to imagine what could have happened for her.
Mm.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you talking to me. It's always a pleasure to watch your work.
Yeah, it's
Thank
good to
you
see
so
you
much.
again. Thank you.